Mm. Hey y'all, welcome to the Devon A. Morris Unfiltered Call-In Show. Have a seat. Let's get ready. You have any questions? Come on, call in. Come on to that Discord channel. Do me a favor, get the unfiltered crew some finger snaps. We're ready to get started here. Mondays, 8 p.m. Every single Monday, we're here. I'm excited about it. Are you? Let's get this show started, y'all. The greatest Scrum show on earth. I'll see y'all soon. Enjoy. All right. How y'all doing? Hopefully y'all have had an amazing day or so since we're beginning of the week, right? So anyway, if you don't know me, my name is Devon Morris. I'll introduce myself a little bit later when we go through the presentation, but this is the Unfiltered Call-In Show where we talk about Agile, Scrum, entrepreneurship, all those kind of wonderful and great things, right? I've been around this little Scrum thing for a while. I've been around the Agile thing for a while. I've been around this IT thing for a while. You know, it's just been a while, right? And so here's the deal. Here's how this operates. Nothing really complicated. My primary purpose is to answer your questions. So think of some questions, right? When you think of those questions, do me a favor, throw them in the comments, right? I'm gonna go through and make sure that I answer your questions, or you can come on the show and we can just do our thing, right? And since we're gonna do our thing, we just gonna have a good time, right? So again, you're welcome to come on the show, live on the show, if it's a deeper question, because that way we can have an exchange, right? It's always a pleasure to have an exchange because then I can ask you some very specific questions and see kind of where we go, right? But other than that, if you don't have those kind of guts, you're welcome to just kind of drop it in the chat. I even made sure that I brought my headphones. I put them, they're in my pocket, right? I brought my headphones to make sure that we can do this today, right? Something kind of good. Other than that, do me a favor. Make sure you say hi wherever you're at. Just say hi in the chat. You know how it goes. I'll get some shout outs a little bit later. Let's see. What's going on this week? Nothing real crazy. You know, I'll tell you what I'm worried about more than anything. Well, I'm not even worried, you know. It's like I have a kid in college right now, and you know all them protests are happening in terms of Israel and Gaza, right? And I don't have a real opinion about it, right? But people on campuses have real opinions about it, and I have a daughter that's like me, and I was kind of like a protesting type dude back in the day, right? I was a little bit militant, all these kind of things, and so you know, I had a conversation with somebody saying your daughter's just like you, so that made me get worried. So I got a little worried, and I said to myself, I need to call her and say no protesting, right? So yeah, so I got to make sure I got to go down there and drive her and pick her up. So that's really the biggest thing going on is maybe that thing. Otherwise, just kind of doing work with clients and making sure that we're getting good things going. Just having just having good stuff, man. I mean, I did a story mapping session last week, user story writing session. I'm just enjoying things, right? And then able to train, got to go fly out tomorrow and go do some things this week. So just kind of like flowing, man. I ain't flowing crazy. Like prior to the pandemic, it was crazy. I mean, I was training 3 times a week, right? So 6 days a week. And so this is definitely different. And I'm just enjoying it. I really am. Other than that, nothing really important. The biggest thing well, probably my biggest surprise today is that Illinois iPass has caught up with everybody else's iPasses. Like their toe tags have caught up, right? Illinois had this big thick thing, right? And everybody else got these little stickers that you just put on the window. Illinois is caught up for some strange reason. So I stuck my tongue out them when I talked to them and said, I'm glad y'all finally caught up. Anyway. So other than that, everything else is actually amazing and good. Tonight's topic is going to be about preparing for an Agile project manager job. We're going to talk about that today. It always comes up. It doesn't fail. It always comes up. Still probably people that come through a CSM class, at least in terms of mine, they are people. I would say 50% of them have dreams of project management or association with project management to some degree. So I think it's still a heavy deal, and there's probably several of you that's here that had kind of got exposed to Scrum kind of via project management or the Agile via project management. Um, that's probably how I got exposed, right? At least really got exposed, where I really got interested, right? Prior, I was just kind of BSing around with it. But other than that, we kind of good. So that's going to be our topic for today. So let's just kind of get into it. Just make sure you start thinking about those questions so we can dive into that. So today, our topic, just kind of going to it, is going to be preparing for an Agile project manager job, that job, that interview that you want to knock out the park and make sure that you get whatever opportunity you want to get. Now, I will tell you, just to give you a bit of background so you understand. I, if you want to know a little bit about me, let me just kind of give you the deets, right? Pretty much, if you look, I'm a PMP, right? I've been a PMP since 2005. I got my PMP right before I got my CSM. And I'm a certified Scrum trainer at this point in time, right? So I've been dealing with project management for a period of time. And literally, when I say to you, if I was to step back, before I really got into Scrum thing, like 2001 through 2000 through 2004, I really was trying to be a project manager. Like I just kind of made a decision to move from development and start working toward being a project manager. And that's when I was at Allstate, and they wasn't doing heavy project management stuff. And I started studying for the PMP and getting project management hours in. And then when I went to State Farm, from Allstate to State Farm, that's when I really ran into Scrum, right? And Scrum is what changed everything, because people were talking about extreme programming, and I didn't understand it, because I was working more in mainframe stuff, right? Now, that being said, let's kind of talk about this a little bit more, because one of the things that people may not understand, and I've mentioned it time and time again on the show, is my first 3 jobs were really associated with project management or had project management titles. So a project planner I was, and then I was a kind of Scrum master or co-Scrum master with somebody, co-product owner with somebody, and then I became a Agile project manager, and then again another Agile project manager, and those are the kind of roles that really happened. And so when you really think about it, Scrum and its project management thing just always been holding each other's hands for a long time. And so let's talk about this a tad bit more. If there's anything that I would say, about any project manager whatsoever, probably the heaviest thing that you have to really have is soft skills, and you have to learn how to showcase those soft skills. That's really important. Being able to demonstrate leadership skills, negotiation skills, conflict management, problem solving, the way you communicate. And I say this because there may be a behavioral interview that comes up, right? There may be a behavioral component, or they may ask you to have an example. And if you can pull in examples that shows that you have these type of skills, you're probably going to be in a better position by doing that. And being in a better position is going to actually help them to see it, because what it boils down to is managing projects is really about managing people. And so as long as you learn how to manage people, you can manage projects really well. You got to be ready to explain how you deal with team dynamics, how you motivate team members, especially when things are going awry, when things are going wrong, right? How do you work toward making sure we have the most productive environment that's around? These are just things that you need to do, right? And you need to be prepared. And my statement clearly to people is practice it. Practice it. Find people to practice how you can answer some basic questions, so you can find a way to dip these things in and bring up these skills, or the showcasing of these skills within the interview itself, right? Because in everything that you answer, it's an opportunity for you to showcase yourself. And so you have to find ways to kind of weave these things in. And if you can weave these things in, you're going to be sitting a little prettier than most other people, because they don't know how to do that. It's one thing to create a brand for yourself and to make sure that you have the right internet presentation. But it's another thing when you actually get the interview itself and you got to showcase what you have. And showcasing soft skills is going to be extremely important for you. Now, one of the biggest things that you have to do is you have to understand the Agile philosophy. And I say the Agile philosophy because if you know anything about Agile, there are things that you need to deal with, right? If it's me, I'm looking for people who want to do this Agile thing, and I'm trying to take advantage of non IT teams. If you got IT experience, let me just say this, right? IT project managers are different. They normally have a lot of stuff to deal with, right? There's no question. Complexity of what we deal with is extreme, is tremendous, right? Um, but who doesn't experience those levels of complexity and do have complexity is going to be HR, is going to be marketing, is going to be operations, and you can bring those skills to them, right? And so if you have any experience in that, that's going to be helpful for you. Adapting to different environments, those challenges, because I'm going to tell you something, right? If I was jumping out in the world today as an agile project manager, I would definitely be looking in different type of fields, right? Fields that touch IT, but not necessarily IT. And the reason why I'm going to do that because I know that this thing is going beyond IT, is going beyond just software development, right? And so these are places that I'm looking, especially if I have some background in that kind of stuff, right? So if I'm an educator and I've made a career change, I'm probably going to look for something in education where I can be an agile project manager to some degree, right? And so just make sure you consider diverse environments. Make sure you consider things that could bring a bit of challenge that organizations are having. You know, understanding how to work with stakeholders. Stakeholder management is tremendous in terms of project management. You know, another thing that a lot of Scrum Masters fail at, and this is a unfortunate thing, is a lot of Scrum Masters fail at being able to work with other teams, other areas within the company. And I have some project managers that's been here for a while, right? Have you all seen, the newer Scrum Master who doesn't know how to work with another functional area to get things absolutely through the organization? If you've experienced that, tell us what your experience has been. Throw that in the comments, right? Because I see that a whole lot. Some people think that just going to get a CSM is just enough, and a lot of times it's just not enough when you go into these complex environments. And so if you've been around these complex environments, you have seen that sometimes more than just that agile stuff is needed. Especially when it comes to things like risk management, for example, right? Ensuring that agile practices are understood, and then being really effective at company-wide implementations. That's something that a lot of people that's working with their little teams don't quite know how to do. And some of you've seen it. Some of you've definitely seen the scrum master who doesn't know how to work across the company. And I'm not talking about team by team. I'm talking about getting something that's going big enough across the company out the door. We talk a lot about this agile stuff. And if you really look at many scrum masters, they've never truly delivered something, and you got to be careful because there's a difference between delivery, because delivery actually teaches you a whole lot. But let's move on because we only have so much time, and I always go over time with this. I want to leave room for questions. The next thing on the list is going to be to review common agile practices. Make sure that you are well aware of this agile stuff, right? Especially particular practices. The reason why I say that is because agile talks about people and interactions over processes and tools, right? If I'm you, right, I would make sure that I understand agile methods very, very well, right? Um, you know, Skilled in communication, empathy, leadership. But let me take a little bit deeper than that, right? Um, when I say agile methods, I think it is important to understand what the heck Kanban is, what the heck Scrum is, what the heck extreme programming is, right? Those three you need to understand, like clearly understand. Understand how to deal with implementation of all three of them within an organization. Um, and I say extreme programming, um, like everybody has some software development expertise, but understanding extreme programming is going to help you, right? I'll give you a perfect example. I'm working with an organization right now, and I had to talk with one of the executives and just say, some of the things that's happening right now is not going to lend very well to us changing how we do the work. And these are some of those things. And that means to me, we're not going to be able to implement, automated testing, for example. And we're talking about it within IT. And these other practices just doesn't lend very well to that. And that's really amazing for me to speak to, because the truth is that I know that from an agile perspective, but then I also have to think across the organization, how these things will impact us as we try to get things done. And so we can try to start moving other things to help the organization make shifts. Understanding this will help you in the interview, right? Because there could be a question that talks about going across boundaries, talks about different methods that exist. Most people are doing a hybrid, they're not doing pure anything. And so being able to speak to those different things and how you would combine them, or in a situation when they're not using extreme programming, and what's the first thing you would implement, a practice you would implement if you were doing extreme, if you had to bring it in. That's important, right? Because there may be some questions I may ask them. Hey, what do you think about this? Okay, well, if this was the situation, then I would do this first, because this doesn't require any tools. So those things are helpful for you, because you can help guide them in the right direction, right? Which they're looking for that. They're looking for you to be the master at the Scrum and Agile stuff, and then they're also looking for you to be able to get projects through. So all these things are really, really important. And so what else is important is making sure that you can manage and motivate cross-functional teams, right? Um, you know, we still have a lot of organizations with just a single function, right? And a single function is what it is, right? That's a lot of organizations that have that. And sometimes they'll matrix those single functions out, and then the reporting structures remain the same. And some of you run into these situations before. But how do you manage them when they have different masters? You got to figure out how to do that. Because it becomes part of your responsibility, the expectations that they have with you, resolving conflicts that go across boundaries, right? That's important. Making sure that you, especially in today's world, being way more inclusive. We have so many people that kind of identify or think of themselves in very different ways than what it was 10 years ago. And finding ways to deal with that is going to be helpful, because these are what organizations are facing today. Making sure that you understand tools. Agile tool proficiency is important. And literally, when I'm talking about agile tool proficiency, I'm not talking about pretending like you know. Have some proficiency in a tool, period. If it's just one tool, I'm kind of solid with that, because at least you can talk to one tool. If you can't talk to any tools whatsoever, I wouldn't believe that you've been inside of a company. Like, I wouldn't believe that you've been inside of a company, because most companies. I mean, okay, I asked the older heads in here, right? Name a company. I mean, has more than 70% of the companies that you've worked with in the past 5 years already had a tool when you walked in the door. Like, if that's a yes, just say yes in the comments, right? Legitimately, more than 50% of the companies, more than 70%, more than 80% of the companies that I have touched bases with in the past 5 years have had some version of a tool in house before I ever arrived in the building, right? Before I ever arrived in the building, right? And so it is more of a norm than not being a norm. There was a time when I would be thinking about what tool are we going to implement. But a lot of times in today's world, those decisions have already been made. And the good thing for you is that the job description will tell you, right? It will tell you what tools that they're looking for. You'll see Jira, you'll see version 1, you'll see Agile Manager, DevOps, you'll see that, Active Collab, Rally Software, even some teams are using Mural and Miro, right? So, really important, right? People still use Excel to this day. So it's one of those things where when you see it there, get yourself ready to be asked some questions related to it, right? Because if they got Jira in-house, they probably looking for somebody who has experience with Jira. Sometimes they don't care how recent that experience with, but they want you to have some experience with the tool. And so, the good thing for everybody here is that the vast majority of these tools offer a free version. Like there's a free version. Maybe 5 people. You can't do a whole lot, but you can go in and jump in and play around and maybe put some information out there and start seeing how things link up. If you're gonna do story points, estimates, where do you put that? How do you do planning poker? Because some of them have ways to do planning poker within the tool. Just all these little things become really important, right? And they all do it a little bit differently, right? Some tools will say, hey, a feature breaks down into epics, an epic breakdown into features, other tools. And so those are little nuances that you'll find in terms of differences between tools. And having somewhat of an understanding of that is going to be important to you, right? And I tell people in class, over my lifetime, I've been an administrator of, let's see, Agile Manager, that's HP, Jira, that's Atlassian, Azure, that's Microsoft, version 1 for sure, Rally for sure, Microsoft Project for sure, because I've done Agile with that. I've touched on Mingle many times. Monday's too new for me. Excel for sure. I haven't done anything like Mural or Miro yet, but I know of people that do that. So, I've been an administrator, right? Have I been in the tools really super deep the past 5 years? No, I haven't. Um, and I normally, when I walk into organizations today, I don't need to. I don't need to dive deep into those things, because when I dive deep, I want to go in and just play around with it and figure some things out. And there are other people that need to do that beyond me, right? And normally I'm trying to work more at the enterprise level. But understanding those things is going to be beneficial for you. So I think you should, if you haven't had experience with these tools, go play around with some of these tools. Go experience some of those tools. They will help you in the interview. Trust me. And so, when you understand those tools, you'll understand how to manage communication and utilize the tool to be more effective at communication, how to manage agile projects effectively, how to track progress. Those are things that become really important. So just remember, tools aren't going nowhere. And in the past 5 years, I have not gone into an organization, and I'm going to go even further than that. Since 2015, I haven't gone in an organization that had to decide on a tool. They had a tool in house when I walked through the door. So I don't think that these things are going anywhere, and I don't think any of you should think any of this stuff is going anywhere at all. But these are those classic tools, and at least get into one of them if you've never been in any of them before. At least get into one of them, right? Because they're all like 75% the same, right? Make sure you understand the business context, right? One of the things that becomes critical for many agile project managers is the connection to the business. Understand that there is a customer stakeholder focus, stakeholder more specifically. I'm just gonna do this and just say, literally stakeholder specifically, right? Because a lot of times, these agile project managers are working closer with stakeholders. Um, with agile, we have a stronger focus on the customer. We have a stronger focus on what the stakeholder desires, right? So it's important for you to incorporate that in some way in the interview itself, right? Thinking about ways that you can get more feedback from users, right, is important. Many of the efforts going to be production level. How do you execute projects or projects that's in execution? What about maintenance once you've gotten the big things in? How do you deal with customers then? All those things are important. Some of you are going to have direct communication with stakeholders. Others of you is going to be indirect. So knowing how to deal with those two things is very different. And then grabbing the data that you need in order to make the right decisions that you can. So again, I think that there's a big thing when it comes to stakeholders, and you really can't get around stakeholders because they're a really important part of the agile process, right? And so since you can't get around it, you might as well get yourself heavily involved in it as best you can. At least I would if I was you, right? Now we're gonna move on to the next one, because I think stakeholders is important. And if you have not been around the PMP has knowledge areas. I would definitely go look at stakeholder management. I would definitely go look at risk management. I definitely would dive into those things in terms of the PMP. It will be extremely helpful for you if you do that. Yeah, trust me, it will be. Okay. Now, that being said, make sure that you prepare for technical, behavioral, and project management questions, right? So these are three different things, even though I don't really have any commas here, right? Technical, behavioral, and project management questions. These are three different types of questions that will come up if you are dealing with an agile project manager. So you got to prepare for these things, right? This is a PM position, but it's a mixed PM position, right? It's a mixed PM position. So thinking about technical questions that can come up, and the truth of the matter is, I have less technical questions. Now, if this dang on thing says a technical agile project, then you got that. You got to be deep down in the technical stuff, right? But normally there's a team that does the technical stuff, so that's not as big of a worry. But behavioral questions that will aim to understand your leadership style, understand how you communicate, understand how you handle conflicts is definitely something that's going to come up, because that ties really close into the whole agile thing. And then the project management things. How do you handle process? How do you deal with auditable items? What about those knowledge areas? These things will come up. So be prepared to, and this is the good thing for this, is that these are questions that you probably can practice answering. Behavioral around leadership style or how you would handle conflict. You can think of situations that you have worked with before where you have resolved a conflict, or there was something that didn't work out, or you had to use a very different leadership style in a particular situation. Those are things that you probably have experienced, and you might as well get yourself ready to answer, right? Some example questions, right? Agile expects 100% dedicated team members. Can you tell us about how you would handle teams that are not fully dedicated? Tell me that's not a regular question for an agile project manager. That is absolutely a regular question. And most of you all know that the answer is not, hey, agile requires 100% dedicated teams, and you just got to do that. That's the wrong answer. It just is, right? I'm working with teams right now that's not 100% dedicated. So I get it, but it's very rare. It is like, if I say it's an 80-20, 20% of the time I get a team that's fully dedicated, and it's not even close to that. You understand what I'm saying? So for me, you should be prepared and ready to answer a question like that. You should be prepared to go on that with ease, right? That should be something that flows off your tongue almost to the point where it feels like you're a con artist. It flows off your tongue so well. And so, can you describe a time when you had to pivot a project based on feedback, right? What tools do you use for tracking and managing agile projects? I think these are very typical questions. And I'm curious, because some of you have had interviews before, how what kind of questions did you have, right? But that 100% dedicated team members, every training, I have to say, hey, the team member's supposed to be 100% dedicated. In every training, people just like, well, that ain't reality. I know, but we got an ideal place where we're trying to get to, right? And I have to make sure people understand that. So really, really important. Now, just so you understand, the knowledge management areas that are associated with project management, this is directly from PMI. Integration management, scope management, time management, cost management, quality management, resource management, communication management, risk management. Look, man, let me just say this to you. Integration could be dealt with easy because of how we do the work. Scope, you got a product backlog that you are prioritizing. Time, you're rocking in 2-week sprints. A lot of us don't have day-to-day costs, and costs are fairly the same across most agile projects. Quality is definitely a big thing, right? Resource management, we normally got same resources over time. That's easy to deal with. Communication management, big deal. We're going to have to deal with that. And risk is something we never talk about, but we got to deal with. So if I had to prioritize these things, these would be the 3 things I would focus on. The other ones, I think, a lot of times are naturally handled within the agile landscape. So just know that, but go study these knowledge areas. And if you can't study them all, then start off with risk management, quality management, and communication management. Do that. You will make your life much easier in the situation. Now, make sure that you are prepared and ready to reflect on past experiences. If you don't have any experience in this area, I understand you won't be able to do this, but I'm telling you, your past experiences is going to be pluses, right? We really talking about practice, and I want you to learn how to prepare yourself for these things, because this goes back to how you answer questions, right? You got to prepare yourself to be ready to share examples of what happened when you previously was successful on an agile effort or had a successful something that occurred. So this is all really, really important. Make sure you highlight those challenges, right? Those difficult things that happen in the project phase. I don't want to say the word phase, but you might have people to talk about phases. How did you innovate to improve a process, right? A lot of times the things that I utilize, at least the method that I utilize, is the STAR method. If you never heard of this before, shame on you, right? This is present a situation, present a particular task, talk about the particular action, and then talk about the result. It is a good way to structure the way you answer questions in an extremely very effective way. What do I mean by that? The STAR method. First, explain the situation so that your interviewer understands the context of your example. They do not need to know every single piece of detail, right? You're not trying to interview all dang on day. The task part, right? So look at that. You see that 20% there. So we're not talking about you spending forever on that piece, right? Then the next thing, 10%. Next, talk about the task, the problem, the challenge that you took responsibility for completing or the goal of the effort. That's only 10%. So between these first two situation tasks, you got 30% right there. And understand the result is the last 10%. The meat of this thing, the majority of this thing is in the action that you took, where you're going to describe the actions that you personally took to complete the task or reach that end goal. Highlight the skill, what the behavior, the character traits, the things that you did in particular that highlights who you are, that the actual soft skill that you showcase. Highlight all those things when you answer the question, because that's going to all be in the action. You understand? It's going to truly be in action. So you got to make sure that you take a moment and you got to do that as well as you possibly can. And this may be something you need to practice. And then last but not least, explain what the outcome was. Explain what the results were, right? It'd be great if this is quantifiable. If it's quantifiable, you make your life way easier, right? You make your life way easier. Have you all done this before? Have any of you all heard of this? If you have, let me know if you practice this, right? It's something I've practiced for a while, because I think it just makes sense. But I practice it in I practice in a lot of situations. But anyway, the point I'm making to you is, if you've done something like this, let me know, right? Because I think this is a really good method. Now, I'm gonna take you through an example here so you understand, right? Real simple example, nothing really complicated. The question is, can you tell us about how you would handle teams that are not fully dedicated? You understand? Really simple. Something I brought up earlier, something that happens all the flipping time. You understand? And the way I'm going to jump at it real quick is, when I worked for a previous client, I inherited a team where everyone was working on multiple projects, and we had several sprints of rollover stories. That's my situation. You understand? Do you understand the situation? I got a dedicated team working on multiple projects, and they had several sprints with rollover stories, right? I'm throwing lingo out there. I'm throwing everything out there that they should know, because they likely have these problems. Do you get what I'm saying? And understand, it is not taking me forever to explain the situation. You hear what I just said? It's not taking me long to explain the situation. And then the next thing to really jump into is the task, right? The task. With an upcoming sprint, I was asked by leadership to help the team correct their issue with late delivery and rollover stories. Challenge! Challenge! That was the challenge, man. That was the challenge. You understand? That's when they did challenge. That's when they did that to me, right? You feel me? That's when they did that to me, right? And so I had the situation. I got the situation going on. But they went, challenge! That's what they did. You remember Bill, you know the Huxtables. Challenge! You remember that, right? When they was doing the dance. Challenge! You remember that, right? And that's what happened, right? And so I'm just out here doing my thing, right? Anyway, but you got a situation, you got a task. 30%, man. It's not taking that long. And I'll probably add a little bit more meat to this. Next sprint planning, the team stated that they were supporting production issues. We agreed in sprint planning on a 60-40 split of capacity, with 60% of sprint activities, 60% dedicated to sprint activities, 40% dedicated to miscellaneous. That way, production issues could be dealt with, and the team planned based on these constraints, and then we started executing the work. I made sure that the tech lead only dedicated 50% of their time so they could have the ability to utilize the rest of their time to actually take care of the issues and coordinate and shift the team as needed, right? And so you understand, I'm adding the meat of the action of the things that I did within that particular step. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm like, look, I'm taking your challenge and I'm one-upping it, baby. That's what I'm doing. Here's the things that I specifically did. You feel me? You understand where I'm coming from? Then the last thing is really simple. What was the outcome? The team was able to complete 100% of the committed stories, and because there was less production issues, 3 additional stories were accomplished. Tell me I didn't just knock that out the park? Tell me I didn't just knock that out the park. Bang. I'm Bo Jackson on it, baby. I knocked it out the park. Matter of fact, I'm so Bo Jackson, I knocked it out of the park and I got a touchdown in the same game. if you actually believe me, that's you don't know no sports at all. I'm just saying. But you all understand where I'm coming from. Does that make sense? I mean, does that make sense? Seriously, does that make sense? Because for me, if you break your things down in that manner, you knock it, they ain't gonna even have no questions. You feel me? They ain't gonna have no questions. You understand? The only thing they could do is throw another task at you, right? They could throw another something at you, and then you just star it out. What's the situation? What was the task that you were challenged with? What's the action, the meat of it? What did you actually do? And then what was the result? That's it. That's it, man. There's nothing more to it than just that. Anyway, all right. I'm gonna keep moving, right? Because I didn't think I'd hit y'all over the head too hard with that. All right. Now that being said, make sure that you ask some insightful questions, right? This is an opportunity for you to literally determine whether you really want to work for them, man. I hate to say it, man. You know, as much as you're interviewing, you should be interviewing them. Like literally, I look at myself as a commodity. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm a commodity. Well, no, I'm better than a commodity because a commodity normally is cheap. I'm the thing. I'm the sugar honey iced tea. That's what I am, right? And so since I'm the sugar honey iced tea, I'm rolling in there like I'm the sugar honey iced tea, and I'm rolling in there like I can tell you no. I don't really care how broke I am. I'm gonna roll in there like I'm the sugar honey iced tea. You figure what I'm saying? You understand? So at the end of the interview, normally you get time. Make sure you take that opportunity to ask some questions, right? Make sure you've looked into the company. Make sure that you think about asking questions at other times, because the end is not the only place to ask questions, right? You know, I have a really, really super important friend of mine who she was in an interview, and in the middle of the interview, they said something about a client. They said something about how to handle a client that basically they ain't put no constraints around. And then she just went back to them and was just like, well, how do y'all handle it? You know, basically, because everything I just told you, you don't want to deal with. And basically, she knew at that point it was going to be a disaster that she was walking into as soon as she asked that question. She was like, I'm not going to work for them because they're going to put me in a situation where I'm dealing with a crazy client. And that's an opportunity to fail. And so make sure you prepare thoughtful questions. You want to demonstrate your interest in the role. Even if you become less interested, you still want to demonstrate interest while you're there. You want to show your understanding of Agile practices, especially in reference to whatever is going on with them. Understanding where they're at in their Agile maturity is extremely important. Understanding some of the challenges they face is extremely important. Understanding relationships that they have with clients, stakeholders is really important. And then just make sure you understand the process in general that they may or may not have, because then you know what you're getting into, right? Then you know what you're getting into at that point. And I think that's really it for us, right? Man, I'm at 40 minutes. Anyway, I didn't mean to do that, but the point I'm making to you is I think it's all really, really important in terms of this. Here's the deal. Just so you all know, I'm going to go ahead and start shutting this thing down. But next week, what we're going to talk about, I'm going to switch gears because we talked about a lot of things. And one thing that somebody complained at me about was the role of business analysts. So we're going to be analyzing Agile next week, and we're going to talk about thriving as a business, as an Agile business analyst. So we're going to dive into that topic next week. So I'm going to look forward to that one. I'm going to write that one up, so that one's going to be pretty solid. I'm going to enjoy that one because I really do love and care about business analysts. Other than that, y'all, that is it for us in terms of this topic. This is what we do all the time. Unfortunately, I'm supposed to only go really 20 minutes on a topic. I really went for almost 35 minutes on a topic. Really, I'm like 10 minutes over where I should be, but that's okay. We still got room to answer questions. So here's the deal. This is a part where you are welcome to drop your questions within the chat. And you dropping your questions in the chat is going to be extremely helpful for all of us, right? And so I got to go ahead and plug my computers up because my computers is running out of juice. And if I wasn't paying attention, I would have just ran out of juice, and then everything would have just fell off, and then you would have seen me gone, and I've been like, oh, I'm sorry. All right, so let me ask you a question, y'all. Was that helpful for you? Like literally, was that helpful? Make sure you say hi. If you haven't said hi, then I'm just gonna, I don't know, I'm just gonna be upset at you, man. I'm gonna look at you with strange eyes. Is what I'm gonna do. That being said, say hi. I'm gonna run out here and say hi real quick. But what questions do you have? Drop those questions in the comments. If you want to join me live, let me know. Throw it in the comments. I'll throw a link out there for you to join live. Right? LinkedIn, do the same thing, right? Because I can see both places at this point in time. So let me go ahead and say hi. What's up, Patrick? How you doing there, sir? How's it going? I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm good. I'm getting back to myself, brother, for real. After my aunt died, it was, I was right. That like hit me. I mean, it hit me the whole time she was dying. But I'm getting better. I'm getting back to myself. Like my aggressiveness is getting back, right? I haven't been communicating with people as well, and so even that's coming back, right? So I'm feeling good about it, man. I'm feeling good, right? I'm getting better. Let's see, D, how you doing? D, how's it going? Hope you're doing well with everything. Rajiv, what's up, buddy? I gotta answer some questions for you. I know, man. I'm just getting back. I'm just starting to get back right, Rajiv. So just know that. Let's see, Shane, how you doing, brother? How's it been, man? How's it going? Okay. Now, K Kid, I don't know your first name, but I'm gonna say hi, right? Yeah, you can. Can we ask questions? Yeah, you certainly can ask questions. Shane, you need of all people, Shane, you need to stop it. You've been around me too long to not know any better, right? And you've been around the show too long to be able to say, "Can we ask questions?" Yes, you can ask questions all day. What questions do you have, Shane? For real. You can ask questions about the topic, or you can ask questions about something that's not related to the topic at all, right? But the whole purpose of the show was started for Bearded Eagle alumni and to answer questions for Bearded Eagle alumni. And then I just opened it up to everybody else, right? Shane is alumni. So come on, Shane. You know me, right? Right, Shane, you know me. You really do know me, right? Oh, Grace, you want to get on live? Come on. I'm going to drop the link for you. All right. So I'll get myself together here. Oh no. Give me a second, because I got to get this together. I got to make sure that I stop these headsets from being over in the wrong place. Because they just go to the wrong place sometimes. Oh, no, no, no. Alright, so let's get them over here. And I'll be good to go. Let's see. La 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 la. All right, so I actually switched everything over. All right, so now I'm good. So you're welcome to join me, Grace, if you got a question and you want to be on. So um, just jump on when you can, right? Let's see. Patrick, as usual, we're good. Let's see. Most interview sessions seem like they are intended to trip you up or piss you off. That's very true. Shouldn't they really be about if you're a good fit? How do you navigate that without smashing someone's head? I would say, Patrick, it's just to me, to be honest with you, I just have had this attitude where I feel like they need me more than I need them. And I always look at it like it's people that's trying to trip you up. It's not necessarily the company itself. And even if they do trip you up or they try to trip you up, I have found when I was interviewing people, I've always found that if somebody I felt was a good fit, I didn't try to trip them up. So to me, that's always that sign of aggression is a sign that says to me that they may not really want me. And so I'm okay with that because I don't look at it as rejection. I look at it as more like you maybe you just didn't have the the numbers to bring me in. Maybe you realize my experience is just too much for you. I may be better than every single person that's interviewing me. So they may be intimidated. And so I just, for me, I just look at it a little bit different. But I think the biggest thing to help with that is practicing. Um, that's how it helped me in the past, was just practicing, practicing, practicing. I even considered, Patrick, I would even consider interviews as being practice. So I'd take on interviews that I knew I didn't want, and I'd use that as practice, because if I get through an interview that I really don't want, and I practice, 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 it's like this. One of the main reasons why I do jujitsu and go practice jujitsu is so I can be ready for a situation that arises, that I don't want to arise, but I'm ready for a situation that arises. So that's the reason why you practice, and so you can be ready for the situation. And in this case, I think practicing interviewing gets you ready for the situation, right? Understanding questions, and you don't always have to have a person that you're practicing with. It's almost like studying. So I've just always gotten to the point where if they're trying to trip me up, if they're trying to treat me bad, in the interview, I really don't want to be there with them. And so I've just taken a whole different attitude toward it. And I've had this attitude for a long time. Um, and it's only, it's kind of like one of those things, Patrick, where it's like you can't take away something from me that I never had. So if I never had it and I never had the experience, there's nothing for me to miss out on. And then with me being from the south side of Chicago, growing up in poverty, it's just like I'm good. Um, so I would say the biggest thing is practicing. Practicing, practicing, practicing helps with that. Because when you practice and then you go through, to me, what I'm gonna call mock interviews, but they're real interviews, the ones that you don't really want. For me, those kind of things help you. So I would definitely kind of move forward in that direction. Okay. I don't see you coming through there, Grace, but I'm gonna look here and I don't see you. I passed the link on, so we'll see what happens. The system normally works. All right, so let's see. Let's see. I'm gonna turn this interview thing on and off. I'm on now. I don't see you, Grace. So I'm gonna turn the interview on off, and I'm gonna bring it back on, okay? And then we'll see what happens, because maybe I did something wrong there. There you go. Okay. All right, let's get you going here, and let me get you going in the right place so we can be good to go. Let's hit that. And I'm gonna grab you and throw you in the guest one. Hey, you, how you been?
Hi, how are you? Long time no see.
This is very true. Are you going
Yes.
to any of these gatherings or conferences that's happening soon?
Uh, yeah, I was thinking of going to the Scrum gathering, but
I
I just found
Okay.
out that I won't get it reimbursed if I go. So,
Oh, okay. Well, then you shouldn't come.
budget
It
cuts.
budget cuts happen all the time. But I'll be there in New Orleans,
Oh, you will
and
be.
we need to
Yeah, I
get a
mean, I
get
think
together
I'll
there.
just, if I decide to go, it'll be really last minute, but I haven't paid or
If you don't
anything
go,
yet.
that's fine. You'll see me around, and I'm gonna go to the Agile. I'm gonna go to one in Dallas too. So I'm gonna stop
Oh
by both
yeah,
of them.
yeah. I'm taking a break this year. I went to that 2 years in a row, and this year
Yeah.
is a skip year, so I'm gonna go. But yeah, I was asking myself if this is appropriate for this theme, but since it's about jobs and interviews, I wanted to
Hmm.
get your feeling about the rumors or reality that agile agile coaches, they're not as sought after as before, and I didn't even know this
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
capital
Yeah.
getting rid of their entire agile enterprise. And so, kind
Yeah.
of what's happening in industry, and what's your take on it, especially for persons who are more junior and still want to kind of sow their oats in the world of agility.
That's a really good question, Grace. Let me say to you that it's true and it's false at the same time, right? And let me tell you what I mean by that. What I'm seeing is a lot of organizations that have been doing agile for a while are getting rid of people, right? And so an amazing example of that would be Capital One, right? They had a big let go of people at one point, last year or early this year, sometime, right? But they've been doing agile since 2006. Okay. And so what I'm seeing is in fields like finance and insurance, where Agile is all over. Um, in fields where Agile has been a thing because IT is a big part of their competitive advantage. And so they needed Agile to gain that competitive advantage. They've been doing this stuff for a long time, most of them over 10 years. And so it should be heavier in their culture at this point. And so they can let people go. However, on the other side of that, in places where IT isn't like the mainstream of everything, the mainstream of competitive advantage, like healthcare and government, I'm seeing more opportunities there. And so if it's me, like a great example is um, last year I was in the biggest healthcare organization in the US, right? The year before that, it was a hospital, right? Um, I didn't touch healthcare prior to that, right? And so I'm seeing more of that. I'm going to go deal with a government agency tomorrow, right? And so I've just seen this kind of thing where we're so heavy in the IT parts of those organizations that use IT as a competitive advantage versus the ones that don't necessarily use IT as a competitive advantage. I find that we are more sought out in those other places, right?
Okay.
And so
Okay.
over the years, it's been interesting because when I first came in, when I first came into the game, was back when Yahoo was just getting that stuff wrapping up back in 2005. They was just they had their wave, and those kind of like startups was heavy and agile, and it was like California, New York, little, and then kind of moving to different places, but it was heavier where tech was really, really a big thing, right? And I would have to go to places, go to those parts of the country to really get my agile game on, right? It was only a surprise for me when I did it at State Farm because we had a guy that was crazy and he just wanted to do it. And so that was different, but I had to then start traveling to places to go do it. And then once, the Yahoo thing happened, then the Google thing happened, and those are just the startups, right? Then it just went straight into that financial industry, into the insurance industry, into those industries that needed it as a competitive advantage. And then I hopped onto that bandwagon and went around. And I think industries will be driving this thing. So if it's me, and I'm jumping out there. Well, I'll put it to you a different way. Bearded Eagle will be taking on more opportunities inside of organizations that have an uptick in terms of agile and not this
Yeah. So
down.
you're saying healthcare is probably a safe place right now. It's separating not just based on the movement, but on industry right now.
I would say it's
Okay.
always been on industry. We
Yeah.
just don't look at it that way because we tend to get hired by the same. If we're a part of a particular industry, we tend to get hired by continually by those people in the industry. So when I was in finance and insurance, that's all I got hired by was finance and insurance, right? And you tend to look at that tends to be your microcosm, and then you don't look beyond that. But what I would say is I'd be looking beyond that at this point because there is so many other non-IT teams, non-this, that are really jumping out there trying to do this and do it well, where you would be a major advantage, you know. So I would be looking at places or industries where IT isn't the major competitive advantage, that they utilize it for that, but they got some other major thing that's the real thing that they do. And I'm not talking about the thing that they build. I'm talking about like, in healthcare, it's like I need to save people. I need to make sure we got quality care. I need to make sure this and these systems help to facilitate that in finance insurance. I need to be able to do this thing so I can beat my competition. I need to be able to deliver this faster technically so I can beat my competition at it. It's just different. And so if I'm you, I think that it's a very true statement that organizations that have been doing agile for years, rightfully so, should be lowering the prices of agilists and getting rid of them. That
Yeah.
only makes sense,
Yeah,
right?
just make me wonder about the future of the career stability and what kind of complementary skill set would you say can help increase your competitive advantage when
Well,
there's
and
a
we
declining.
and we definitely had talked about that for sure. I think that the thing that you need to jump into is going to be artificial intelligence, right? What's going to happen to us is AI stuff across companies will replace repetitive skills, right?
Yeah, like
Development
Microsoft
is
Copilot
great,
for meeting
right?
minutes, it's taking meeting minutes. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you want to make sure that you understand that wave of AI, utilizing it within organizations, and then make sure that you have skills that go above and beyond it because people will still be connecting. People will still need people to make those connections happen. Just what will happen is the skill sets will be different. It won't be about like Scrum Master is a perfect example. How often do you need at this point, since we've been doing it so long, do you really need scrum masters to facilitate every single meeting? You don't, right? If you've been doing it with a team for a while, it's easy. And could you have AI robots set up the meeting, make sure they open up the bridge, open up the virtual thing, and then give some prompts to make sure you go? Absolutely. So those kind of things are gonna go away. So you have to think to yourself, what is AI going to replace, and what skills do I need to extend from that, so and then I can bring value, right? A big thing that will be happening over the next years, for example, is descaling. We have this wave of scaling, but that ain't working. And
No.
what the state of Agile 16 showed that, for example, and I'm only using SAFe as an example, every single scaling thing has had the same thing happen. 52% of organizations said they use SAFe. That's down to 30 some percent or less at this point, right?
Oh yeah,
But
I
here's
read
the
the
deal.
report. The 17th report said it's down by 50% from last year, which is a big
And
hit for
and
safe.
but it's not really a big hit because all they're doing is hybrid of it. They're doing a hybrid of all these things. So they're not getting rid of scaling. What they're doing is descaling now. So and then they can figure out the right mix of things that work for them. So where you could be making a killing is in helping organizations to descale.
Yeah.
One of the things that we'd always been doing in terms of Bearded Eagle is agile rehabilitations, because when these organizations go into scale, they mess up everything. So we got to go in to help them get out of that situation. And so you find those little niches on where you can still have value and provide value, and then you go from there. But for me, all day, I think AI is the way to go. I can literally, I could write a transformation map using AI,
Yeah.
like in
Okay.
a
And I
minute,
mean,
right?
what about waterfall project management as kind of, still holding a candle to the
It's
world
not going to
of
go away.
managing?
Why would it go away? It's not going to go away.
Yeah.
So waterfall is never
Yeah.
going to go away. And why would it go away? Because when you think about waterfall, if there's one thing about waterfall that's really important, is the connections between different parts of the organization. And one thing that Scrum people don't do very well is connect different parts of the organization to make sure something gets out the door. Name how many Scrum Masters that can work with the sales department, work with HR, work with legal, work with marketing to get one product out the door, and your team is only doing the software component of it. And then imagine if there's a hardware piece to it. Tell me how many Scrum Masters can really help to get something out the door that goes across organizations. There's very few, but there's way more project managers that can actually do that. And so that skill is super valuable. And if you have that skill, which I have that skill, I can go in and easily do that. So I can go in, and when I'm in organizations, I'm talking about stakeholder management. I'm talking about making sure we communicate across the board. I know how to deal with hardware and the connections that happens with software, right? And I have a breadth of that, but that breadth comes from that project management stuff, right? And so for me, these skills don't go away because we're still dealing with complex adaptive systems. And as long as we're dealing with complex adaptive systems, and these systems are becoming more complex, not less complex. So we still will need to make sure these connections are happening. And so I don't think that I think that for most of us, you have to remember there's been such an influx of us, and now we're competing on a global scale at this point. Because half of organizations are 50% virtual, if not 40, at 40 to 60% virtual, most organizations at this point, right? And so when I worked at Allstate, and Allstate stole their building, like in Northbrook, they stole their like 10 building campus and said we're virtual, period. So organizations have shifted, right? And so it is one of those things where I think there are industries where our skills are extremely valuable. You just got to start thinking out the box and not thinking it's the industry I've been so comfortable in. You got to be ready to leave that industry and go do other things, right? Just like working in fashion, video games I think is going to be that same way. I think fashion and non-traditional IT kind of things is going to be the things to go after. And so for me, what I think is that most Scrum Masters at this time, most Agile folks are not thinking about that. And you're going to find a lot of Scrum/Agile people are going to be homeless. When I say homeless, not
Yeah.
necessarily on the street, but they're not gonna be making as much money, and they're gonna be really sad and depressed, and they're gonna be changing careers.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That was some insight that I needed. I appreciate you.
Yeah, and if I'm and here's the deal, right? And I said this on the show a few weeks ago. What I usually do is and I've been doing this since college. Every year, I go take a look at the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, and they have an occupational handbook where they provide an outlook on jobs and careers over the next 10 years. And I utilize that as my guide for where I'm going. Does that make sense? And if you go look at
Yeah,
that today, you will see this pattern.
I will do that now. I never thought about that. Thank you for the tip. And
Yeah, the
also keep
government
learning.
does. Yeah,
Keep brain.
the U.S. government does so much stuff that you never think about. They collect tons of data. They do all this stuff, and they're always doing it, right? But I've been doing this since like I was 20 something, right? And so I would definitely take a look at that as a way to look forward. We did in April. We did an April outlook on employment. So once a quarter, the first Monday of the next quarter. So that means the next quarter is going to be July. The first Monday in July. Probably not because that could be around the fourth. So the first or second Monday in July, we're gonna do another employment update. And I will go and grab information and pull it together and provide you guys with another update. So we're gonna do that at least once a quarter. Okay.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
All right, no problem, Grace. I appreciate you, okay? And I'll see you around. All right, bye-bye. It was amazing having her, right? All right, so some of this information you all know. We've talked about it if you've been around. If you haven't, please go look at some of those past videos because we've definitely talked about the employment thing, and I definitely brought up the stuff that I just talked to Grace about. So I think that it's important and behooves you to actually move forward in that area. Let me go ahead real quick and see if there's anything for me to answer here. I'm glad it's very helpful for you in terms of Agile Project Manager, or was it simply IT Project Manager working in an Agile environment? To me, those are two the same things, D. So if it's an IT Project Manager, if you're an IT Project Manager, you're likely exposed to Agile. So I would definitely consider that. Grace, let's see, we talked about the interview thing there. I didn't write that. Okay, well, oh, okay, well, all right, well, that's all good. Let's see. The only thing I did was say hello. No, you good. You good, Shane. You good, Shane. You good, Shane. All right, true that. I take it to session, personal growth to test. Yeah, jujitsu does help you build a level of awareness. And the statement really is, man. Just keep practicing. Just keep practicing. Find a way to keep sharpening that saw. And again, you don't need a person to do that. And just get out of that place where like you've got to have it. If you get out of that place, you're kind of solid. Let's see. Grace was the one that did it. All right, no problem. You can't blame it all on Grace. Let's see. It seems to be hard to get a healthcare contract. Yeah, it can be. Um, but
keep going after it. Don't stop, right? Just because they're saying no, there could be reasons why they're saying no. Just keep going after it. Let's see. We are never aware of the amount of dormant knowledge within us. Very true. Gained from our past experiences, learning. So yeah. Looks like everything was covered. There wasn't a whole lot of deep questions there. So y'all, this is great. We've gone a little bit over time. I think Grace came up with a really good set of questions there. Next week we'll be talking about business analysts for sure. And this is the way the show works, y'all. I'm here to answer questions. I think Grace's question was amazing. And that's what we're going to keep doing. So next week, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to talk about business analysts next week, and it's just going to be a good time. So other than that, y'all, look, you all have an amazing week. I will see you on the Agile journey. Peace, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye, everybody.